episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to get to know the San Francisco 49ers just a little bit more. And joining me on this episode is someone that I actually met in Memphis at the Southern Heritage Classic. Now, for those that don't know, I do cover Tennessee State University football and basketball as well. And this was one of my first road trips actually covering the Southern Heritage Classic. And I had no idea how to get down the field, all those different things. But my lovely guest helped me out, showed me where to go, all those different things. And now she's out in the Bay Area covering the San Francisco 49ers, among other things. That will be Cron 4's Erin Wilson. What's going on?
Hey, thank you for having me on here. So excited to talk about it. It's so funny you bring up the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis because I'm, Memphis all the way through, up and down, left and right. So anytime you need some help around there, I got you.
All right. And definitely that was a memorable one because, of course, that was Eddie George and Deion Sanders as well. So very memorable time as well. Of course, we're going to get into talking about the 49ers as they head to take on the Houston Texans. And the Houston Texans are wearing I believe their alternate uniforms actually in this game as well. So that'll be interesting to see those uniforms again, wearing the blue in the uniform that, of course, they get a little irritated about when the Titans wear their particular uniforms. But that's either here nor there. We'll get into that and more. But of course, always got to start off with a couple different topics. One of these topics that, are kind of, I guess, on my mind. And I feel like I have some things I want to say about. And the first one is Stephen A. going at LeBron James. Now, a couple years ago, I know people remember, or a year ago, I remember people seeing LeBron James step up to him on the sideline after Stephen A. had ran his mouth recklessly on First Take and said he wasn't hard to find. Well, LeBron found him, and he found him on the sideline and dressed him, of course. And then he had his moment on the air and all those different things. And it's always interesting how he finds the courage on air, but he doesn't ever find it when he's not on air. But that's another story for another day. But it was interesting now, these last couple of times he's gotten on podcasts, talked about how he does not like LeBron James. And, it's just interesting. I know people are asking him questions, but
yeah,
he gets on there. I don't like it. I don't like him. I'm like, come on, Stephen A. At some point, you got to move on from the hurt that he doesn't like you, because it sounds like you're a little hurt. It sounds like you sound like you got embarrassed a little bit, and you just want to continue to talk about how you don't like him and how I don't know. It's just weird. It's just very, very weird. And you're like the only person talking about it, and it's like a year later. It just, I don't know. Do you get those weird vibes when he's just up there talking about LeBron James and literally LeBron has said nothing about him?
Well, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a woman, and I do think that we as women kind of look at these things a little differently, because when it comes to situations like that, can you hear my dog barking? Do I need to put him up? Can you hear him barking?
Yeah, I can hear your dog barking.
Okay, do I have 1 second to put him up really quickly? Is that okay? Are you able to edit that?
Yeah, let me take it down real quick. Okay. It's all good. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Goodness gracious.
Here, you want me? All right. 1 sec. There we go. All right. We're going to get back into that topic in a minute as my guest goes to put up the dog. You're hearing the dog barking in the background, but hey, it's all good. No worries. But yeah, this Stephen A. topic, man, all I can say is it's driving me crazy. It's driving me crazy. And I'm just like, at some point, can he please just leave that man alone? And can he please just be, talking about whoever or whatever basketball court or anything like that, or whatever else he wants to talk about? At some point, it's got to stop. I mean, the floor is yours if you have your thoughts on that one.
So here's my take on it. Quite frankly, I think it's kind of fun and I think it's kind of funny. However, what I was alluding to before I was rudely interrupted by my four-legged child is that when it comes to this, I think this is more of two guys at the top of their game in sports. And it's a match between egos. And you have Stephen A. Smith, who as a journalist, also someone who is an opinionated journalist who shares his opinion on sports topics. Now, at the time when this all got fired up, it was over Bronny. And Stephen A's opinion on Bronny's maybe how do I put it? His I don't know, his not so earned time in the NBA, although I don't necessarily agree. I think Bronny has the opportunity that was granted to him for reasons that he deserved to have those opportunities. For whatever reason, everybody can share their opinion on it, whatever. And so this most recent situation between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James, I think just got fired up over a father being protective over his son, but then also kind of getting tired of hearing his name in conversations that he was not a part of, especially on national TV. I think anybody would take offense to that. However, when it comes to Stephen A. Smith, we all have a job to do. And that main job is to get eyes watching the television. And one thing about Stephen A. Smith, he knows how to keep the people locked in to whatever it is he's putting out there, which is why we see him now in politics. We see him on his podcast. We see him as a family man. We see him as a host. We see him as an analyst. We see him as so many different hats that he is wearing. We see him as a troll when it comes to the Cowboys. Not too much. But either way, we see him in all these different roles where he likes to poke. That's always been his thing. That's his steez. That's his shtick. That's his personality. And we just see these two personalities clicking. You have pretty much the king of basketball, the king of journalism when it comes to ESPN. I mean, obviously there are other people, but right now these two are really hot names. And honestly, I just think this comes down to two guys wanting the other to bow down and kiss the ring. And nobody's wanting to kiss the ring because they both have rings to kiss. So, not a big deal. It's also for clicks. And that's why Stephen A. Smith continues to talk about it, because he, like I said, knows how to keep the people watching and knows how to keep them interested. And what better way to do that than to talk about a beef that derives between himself as a journalist and LeBron James as the king of the NBA, going to be revered as that for years and generations to come. So it's just a moment. And I quite frankly enjoy it. As long as we can keep it all fun and games and conversation and nothing goes too deep or too crazy or too disrespectful, all's fair in love and sports. So, whatever. I don't really, it doesn't bother me too much. I find it slightly entertaining, but I don't like to see one or the other beat up on the other. I think they both hold their own. I think they both have their opinions. I think they both have their sides. And I'm not in it. So, I'm a spectator and I spectate those two doing their thing. And I watch from the sidelines and I allow them to be themselves, and I pick up on nuggets that I can as to how they function, how they respond. How does Stephen A. respond as a journalist? How does LeBron James respond as an athlete? If I was in that position, how would I be affected by this? How would I respond? I just try to learn from what's going on in pop culture, sports culture, just across the board. And these two are big faces in both. So, I just let them have it. It doesn't really bother me too much.
Gotcha. I find it interesting. The one part I also find interesting is that he went on Carmelo Anthony's podcast, who's LeBron's boy, and said some of these comments too. I found that quite interesting.
Well, that's how you get them, right?
I definitely, NBA on NBC with the jumpsuit on the other day when everybody else had suits too. So that too.
Stephen A. is doing Stephen A. So I respect it. He put the time in, he put the work in. I mean, to me, it's very similar to, being in NFL locker rooms. Quite frankly, I feel like you understand this covering NFL teams. And I've only covered an NFL team for the last 2 seasons in covering the 49ers so closely, but you see it in the locker room. You got the guys that are the team guys. You got the guys that like to do their own thing. You got the guys that like to hang out with certain people. You got the guys that like to be the biggest voice in the room. And quite frankly, I just think it's just what you get in the world of sports. You have people that want to be seen and they want to be heard, and they put themselves in position to get both.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Now, a guy that's making his voice known in the locker room as well is Tua. I'm not going to try to butcher. I'm not going to try to say this man's last name because I would butcher his last name. But
yeah, I used to butcher it too. Tua Tagovailoa, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to butcher it all the time.
You said it better than me.
I used to call him in college when he was at Alabama. I used to call him Tua Tunga. And by mistake, like I cut off the whole part. It was almost as if his name was just Tua Tunga, or his first name was Tua Tunga, and then his last name was Vailoa. And I finally was able to put it all together. I don't know if you remember, it was a post that went viral of a guy holding up his name during the national championship when he was in college at Alabama as a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. And they were asking if they could read his name. And that's literally how I remember figuring out his name.
Okay, got you. Now, of course, his season so far, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Of course, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in the last game versus the Browns, which is not very good. Of course, he's had while he's not been very good on the field, he's had an interesting. What's that?
I said it's pretty bad, actually, but yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Of course, while he's been doing this, he's also been calling out teammates and things like that, and he's also just been being a little bit more honest at the microphone, mm-hmm. which that can be a good or bad thing, especially with when you're not playing well. So, I just was like, man, the Miami dysfunction. That's what I want to call that, the Miami dysfunction. Of course, you got to play on the field, along with just some of the comments. And the latest comment was him at the microphone talking about Jalen Waddle, why he didn't get as many targets, said he couldn't see him over his offensive line and the defensive line. And I'm like, Tua, just make something else up. Don't say that, man. Don't say that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Tua and some of the things he is saying and some of the things he probably shouldn't say.
Well, I'll put it like this. I agree. I do think that's a terrible answer to give as to why, as a quarterback, you can't find your receiver. However, I've been on teams. I'm a former athlete, played basketball all the way through college, and I've been on teams where the chemistry was great. I've been on teams where the chemistry was piss poor, like the worst it could have been. It was a dysfunctional team, a dysfunctional roster. No one liked each other. No one got along. And quite frankly, that's what this Miami team reminds me of. And then you couple that with injuries like losing Tyreek Hill and a few other guys in. Now you have even more frustration and stress around the franchise. So for me, the way I see it, Tua has to understand, just like we understand as journalists, nothing about a job is going to be easy. That it's a job. And although you're playing football as your profession under lights, and it's fun and it's a great environment and it's a thing that people go to do to watch and enjoy, it's still your job. And so there are going to be situations, especially when money is involved, where frustrations are high and emotions are as well. And I think you have to understand, like we do, which is what I was about to say, is you have to pick and choose your battles. And I think Tua Tagovailoa is in a place where he's learning which battles to pick and choose, and some of them he's choosing the wrong ones. Now, I say that to say, although he shouldn't have said, oh, I couldn't see, because quite frankly, I mean, I don't read his mind, I don't know him, but he could have been alluding to the fact that he didn't like the play call, quite frankly. He could be trying to get people to read between the lines as to why he couldn't see his receiver or his guy, his target. The thing about it, as a quarterback, you've been in enough situations, you played on enough teams, and you've been behind center or under center behind a number of offensive linemen that I'm sure range in height. And I don't believe for a second that you just couldn't see him. I think that there's something deeper going on, which we've seen him talk about the fact that, I mean, we have these player-only meetings. No one's showing up to these player-only conversations. That can destroy a team when everyone starts to play for themselves. However, if I'm going to play devil's advocate when it comes to the Miami dysfunction, one thing I understand about, or one thing I'm learning to understand about the NFL is whenever things are good, it's always a team win, a team thing. But whenever things are bad, the finger starts to be pointed. And I think what Tua is doing is reacting to the finger being pointed at him as the problem when he's saying, no, I'm trying to be a leader. I'm trying to have players only conversations and meetings. I'm trying to get through to some of the guys on the team, and they're just not trying to hear it for whatever reason. I think that was his reason for revealing that to the public, hoping that once he dropped that nugget out there to the public, that would create such a media storm that things would have to get better. I mean, you've been in those situations before, I'm sure, where you've tried to fix the problem quietly, and it just gets so frustrating and it gets so bad that you then say something publicly because you feel like, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. And maybe this is what needs to happen in order for things to get better. Tua Tagovailoa does not strike me as a problematic guy or a guy that likes conflict, quite frankly, because he doesn't handle it well. We're seeing that now. But he does strike me as someone who, as a quarterback, feels a lot of pressure that he needs to get off himself. And he feels that pressure because while he's trying to rally the troops and then also trying to possibly do his own way of rallying the troops that's not necessarily translating to the people that he's talking to, he needs to find some kind of common ground, I think, amongst the team, because no one wants to be led by someone they don't like. So then you have pushback and you have these issues on teams that I was on where that was the situation. No one was listening to anyone. No one got along with anyone. And when we got in between those lines and it was time, the only thing that allowed people to play together is when we were in games late. And it was like, okay, I really want this win because I'm competitive. So I have to play team ball. But there were situations where you would go out there and people were playing their own game. I need 30 points. I need 20 points. I need 15 rebounds. I need 10 rebounds. And that is all they were focused on. And you notice that, I'm talking about basketball, you notice that because you got a guy wide open on the wing and you in the post and you being triple teamed and you fighting to get a basket instead of feeding the open man. That's the kind of stuff that happens. That's what we're seeing. But in football, when it comes to Miami, I think I need my stats to look better. This is about me in some kind of way, and it starts at the top, which is why I agree with what Teddy Bruschi said on Get Up when he spoke about it, because he said no, he actually was playing devil's advocate for Tua, saying he said this for a reason, and it starts with the head coach. So Mike McDaniels needs to figure out what's going on around there. He needs to get a handle on it because, like they always say, the snake rots from the head, I believe is the phrase. And so regardless of whose fault it actually is, it's the responsibility of the team's superior leader to get everybody together. And these are grown men. So if the dysfunction is this public, maybe, just maybe, these grown men need to learn how to sit down and have a conversation with each other where they can all be heard and everyone is being understood. And then they find common ground, and I guarantee that common ground would show on the field, because this is not a bad team, and they're not like they don't have a lowly roster with no stars and no weapons. That's not the case. And Tua is not a terrible quarterback, although he's had his fair share of challenges. So, I think it's going to take a kind of same thing with LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. You got to put the egos down, and you got to put each other first. And I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, definitely be interesting. And then, of course, this offseason, Jalen Ramsey decided he wanted to not be there. And maybe this is one of the things he was alluding to as to why he didn't want to be there this year. Mm-hmm. But, of course, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 49ers. Of course, the 5-2 49ers, which I would say plenty of people probably did not expect to start this season. No. We're going to get into them.
I don't think they expected it.
EDO Beard Butter and EDO Beard Wash are the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, You can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
Definitely, we're going to get into more talk about the 49ers, like I mentioned previously, when we before we got to the Stephen A. and Tua talk, and of course we're going to start with the defensive side of the ball, which is the side of the ball that I played when I was in college. Of course, I didn't make it to the NFL, but we got to start with the loss of Nick Bosa. I mean, in the pass rush. I mean, he is the guy that basically stirs the drink for this pass rush or this team. And he's been gone since week 3, I believe. He was versus the Arizona Cardinals. And now, of course, they're still getting there. But what have they kind of done to kind of that you've seen that they've kind of done to kind of overcome the loss of Nick Bosa up front? Right.
So
whether it be like blitzing or things like that.
So here's the thing. When it comes to Nick Bosa was a huge loss to the defensive line. I mean, we saw that firsthand when they in week 4 went up against the Jacksonville Jaguars and nobody could rattle Trevor Lawrence. And if you watch Trevor Lawrence, you understand that if you can get him off his square, he can make some mistakes. They weren't able to force him to make those mistakes because they weren't able to pressure the quarterback as much as they needed to because Nick Bosa was not there. Now, that being said, Nick Bosa is not a void that you can fill. I mean, he just takes up too much room. He creates too much disruption for any quarterback. I mean, whether or not he's being able to actually secure a sack or he's just pressure. He's just keeping the quarterback under pressure and keeping them, having to figure out how to get the ball out quicker. Now, that being said, Bryce Huff stepped up, and Bryce Huff was an acquisition in the offseason from the Philadelphia Eagles. He didn't play so much last season because he went down with an injury late last season with the Eagles. Still went on to win the Super Bowl with the Eagles last season before then being acquired by the 49ers in the offseason. We saw early on this season when he was playing with Nick Bosa that he could get to the quarterback, and it was almost as if we had this tandem because you have Michael Williams, who is great on the run. You have Nick Bosa, who is great with pressure in the quarterback. And then you have Bryce Huff. And at times they were all three out there together. And Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff out there together, you could just tell kind of struck a little bit of fear in quarterbacks. They had to prepare for the two of them coming off of the edge and, of course, forcing their way through the offensive line. Now, Bryce Huff has now gone down, and he is expected to be out for a few weeks with a hamstring. So not only do they lose Nick Bosa on the edge, they've now lost Bryce Huff, which just leaves Michael Williams, who, like I said, is a great talent, but he's a rookie. He's young. He's still learning. So he's having some bumps and bruises along the way as far as his assignment getting to the quarterback, which he's great in the run game, but he's still growing in the passing game, which makes sense. He's a rookie. It's his first year, and he's a starting rookie at that as a defensive end who expected to be on the other side of Nick Bosa as a compliment more so than having to take it over altogether as a rookie for this very experienced veteran team because it's an older team more so than it is younger, but it got very young in the offseason. I digress. I say that to say now that they've lost both Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff, my prediction is that before November 4th, they will find a way to bring someone in to fill that void. Because if they do not fill that void on the defensive line and get somebody that will create pressure, because right now they're left with a couple guys. You have your true Gross Matos, who is not really able to stay healthy. I mean, every other week he's in and out with some type of nagging injury, and he's just not able to stay out there. And then you have Travis Gibson and Robert Beal Jr. The two of them, both practice squad players, both of them haven't been called up, and then both of them haven't been placed back on the practice squad. Travis Gibson still remains on the roster. Now, that said, the two of them, great. Travis Gibson even making some plays here in the last few games. However, none of them having the same impact that Bryce Huff, who has recorded the quickest sack in all of NFL history this season, and Nick Bosa, who is just someone that tears up an offense. And so the Niners are struggling on the defensive end in that way. However, they have so many pieces when it comes to linebackers and the secondary that it's almost as if the defense is not so exposed until they play a very skilled quarterback. And that is the challenge that they run into now. So it'd be interesting to see how they fare in week 8 up against the Houston Texans, because you have CJ Stroud, rookie of the year, great quarterback, right? Struggling this year, really on a slump. He is really on a sophomore slump. And but does he get his confidence back against a D line that is not added a piece in place of Bryce Huff and Nick Bosa? Or does the defense for the Niners have a solution under defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, which I would err on the side of yes, to keep CJ Stroud playing the way he's been playing so far this season, which has not been great, because they do have a really great defense under D'Amico in Houston. And so if you want to win this game on the road, which they have been road warriors this season, the Niners have, but if you want to win this game, you do it on the offense. And then you keep the game at bay on the defense, more so than expecting the defense to win the game for you and create so much of a disruption that Houston is not able to get on the board. I don't think that's likely. So I think it'll be a big task for the defense up against the Houston Texans. But I don't think that it's one that they can't get through before the trade. But I do think with games coming down the line, they will need to find a way to fill that Big Bosa void and now the Bryce Huff void to create pressures. Because the more time you give a quarterback, we know, the worse it is on everyone else on the defense, the more likely you are to lose a game. You got to get to the quarterback at least as much as possible. So, they're struggling there, but injuries have been the name of the game for the Niners since I started covering the Niners. So it's not anything that's new to them. They just have to figure a way around it. Next man up, I hear that more now than I ever have. And it truly is a next man up league. But the Niners live true to
that. Yeah, definitely next man up for them. Like you mentioned, a lot of attrition when it comes to that defense. But, the latest loss being Fred Warner with another new loss being Fred Warner, a dislocated and broken ankle, had surgery. Then you have all these young pups on that defense, and you've got the perfect guy, thinking Robert Saleh, to be calling that defense. He's course, come back to the 49ers after being the head coach with the New York Jets. So can you just speak to the importance of actually Robert Saleh being back on this defense? Because I don't know if any other defensive coordinator with this young core or group of players that are inexperienced would be able to get as much out of them as he has.
Oh, like I said, covering the NFL only the last 2 years, it is a stark difference between, and no shade to Nick Sorensen, but being with the 49ers, it is a stark difference as the vibe and the response that you see from a defense under Robert Saleh compared to what I experienced under Nick Sorensen last year. Seemed like last year they were trying to find a way to trust what Nick Sorensen was doing, whereas this year, first week of training camp, immediately, the youth, the young guys, the rookies, the sophomore seasoners, and everyone else, including the veterans who had possibly been with Robert Saleh at some point because he was there just a few years prior. Then D'Amico Ryans took over, then Nick Sorensen, and now Robert Saleh again, immediately bought in. And one thing about it, it's kind of like having a sibling, right? When you have the older sibling and the younger sibling sees the older sibling do something, they immediately want to do what the older sibling is doing. That's kind of the vibe I got with this young, heavy class. I believe they had 13 draft picks this season, or 11, one of the two. I'm drawing a blank right now on the actual amount of draft picks, but they were all pretty much on the defensive side of the ball, with the exception of one or two. And you have guys like Upton Stout, you have guys like Marquise Siegel, you have Michael Williams, Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins is one to really pay attention to, because he had a slow start because he was delayed on his start coming out of Texas with an injury. So he didn't really get to do much in the offseason. But what you see from this defense, and what you've seen from Alfred Collins especially, each week there is a huge, not a small jump. There is a huge jump in production, and almost them being able to grasp the game. And you cannot believe that that's for any other reason other than Robert Saleh. Them saying he's patient. Them saying it's almost as if they listen to what Robert Saleh says and they just regurgitate it. You ask them, what do you like about Nick Martin? Oh, he's violent football. That is a Robert Saleh mentality. They never said that last season when I was covering them. It was never, we got to get to the ball, see ball, get ball, violence, hard, fast, rough. You just never heard them say that kind of stuff the way you hear them talk about it now. And it's literally almost every single one of them. They say the same thing, almost as if it's a scripted answer. And granted, I mean, this is sports, and they do kind of prep them on what to say to the media, but you can absolutely tell that that script is coming straight from Robert Saleh, and they've just completely bought in. I mean, there was no downtime between him coming in and them buying in. It was almost like, oh, we got Robert Saleh, we have no choice but to be great. We're going to be great. That was the vibe from training camp. That has flowed through every game, which is why you see these miraculous plays. I mean, take the LA Rams game and the Niners game where Alfred Collins was the guy to punch it out on the 4th down right there at the end of the game. On the 1 yard line, they keep the Rams from taking the lead by being able to get a touchdown. I believe they would have taken the lead with that touchdown. They keep that from happening, all because of Alfred Collins knocking the ball out of Kyren Williams. And Kyren Williams is no simp. He's no newbie to this game, right? So to have a rookie make such a big play, Fred Warner even saying that it was the best play he had ever seen. Because I asked him before the game, these young guys are up against guys that they watched play. And, they may not be starstruck, but how do they go into a game and play like they should, understanding they're up against basically these giants that they've dreamed to be up against or dreamed to be? And he said, well, for me as a rookie, when it was me, I just had to make plays. And the more plays I made, the more comfortable I got in the NFL, the more I felt that I belonged. And I said, well, are you talking to your rookies? Do they feel the same way? Are they thinking the same way? He said, well, they have to go out there and they have to make the plays, and they will eventually feel like they belong in the league. And then 2 days later, after the game, I asked him, you told me that they have to make big plays to feel like they belong. What did you think of Alfred Collins? And he said, I love a punch out, but that was the most the most exciting punch out and the best punch out I had ever seen. I don't think I can even say I had a play that big. That was coming from Fred Warner, who is the heart and soul of this defense, the heart and soul of the team as a whole. The locker room just feels different without Fred Warner in there. It kind of feels like Dad's on a road trip, quite frankly, and he's not home right now. That's what it kind of feels like. But they also feel like well-mannered, well-behaved children while dad's away. And so they're still able to keep the machine running. But there is a presence missing without Fred Warner there. And you can tell they almost look to hear what Dad's got to say when they see him. And they look to know that he was impressed. Tatum Bethune, D. Winters, they've looked up to Fred Warner this entire time that they played under him. And now it's on them as linebackers to make it happen. And Tatum Bethune being the Mike linebacker in place of Fred Warner, that's a huge task. That's some big shoes to fill, quite frankly. And the fact that Tatum Bethune has stepped in and he's filled those shoes, not ever subtracting from how much preparation has come from him speaking with Fred. Just let you know the impact that Fred has had on that locker room, both on the field and off. And Robert
Yes, for
Sala.
sure, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely you said it best. Yeah, he definitely is a presence that cannot be replaced or duplicated on that team. Yeah, of course, another player that is a veteran on this defense that has been around and seen a few things is Lenore playing corner. Now, I will say that he's dealing with a quad injury right now, so I kind of noticed that. But, a big break that potentially would be there for the 49ers versus the Texans is that Nico Collins may be out of this game because he's dealing with a concussion and has to pass concussion protocol if he's going to play, along with Christian Kirk dealing with a hamstring issue with the Houston Texans. So that would leave Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins actually as the three wide receivers that would be out there for the Houston Texans, along with Dalton Schultz at tight end. Not as strong a passing attack for CJ Stroud, or going along with that offensive line that would be that's still trying to find themselves. I'm just going to try to use nice words because they've probably been dogged a lot this offseason. But so with that being said, if Lenore's out there, I mean, you've got to like the advantages for the 49ers. Even if he's not out there, you still have to like some of the advantages for the 49ers secondary versus the Houston Texans wide receivers.
Oh, I mean, if I'm being honest, Deommodore Lenoir is probably the most exciting player I've covered. I love covering Deommodore Lenoir, just on and off the field. The personality he is his own person, and he has his own ways. He and Chase Lucas, they're very close as well. They're really close friends in the locker room. Funny because they started out with a beef in college, did a beef that translated into the NFL, and now they're locker mates, and they're like the closest of friends. It's funny to watch. But to watch the evolution of Deommodore Lenoir is really exciting because he was always this eager player that wanted to get out there and make some noise. He wanted to ruffle some feathers. He wanted to make sure that his name was known, even almost getting in trouble and getting the franchise in trouble his rookie season because he was tackling in practice that he wasn't supposed to be tackling in because they didn't have the clearance from the NFL. That's one of the big stories about Deommodore. That's literally his personality. That is how he is. He is kind of a do and ask for forgiveness type of player in my mind from what I've experienced covering him, because he is a see ball, get ball type of guy. And he wants that respect in this league. And it's really cool to watch him now that he's a captain on the team, also kind of evolve into a leader where he was kind of meek and mild with his words, not with his performance out on the field, but with his words. He's now much more vocal, and you can tell he's settling into Deommodore Lenoir, the NFL player, instead of the kid coming into the NFL living out their dream. And so to watch him out there on the field and the way he is able to cover guys is really remarkable, quite frankly. And we saw that this week on full display because the Atlanta Falcons, especially with London, and you got Bijan Robinson. You have all these different type of guys. Now, Bijan is a running back, so not much of a problem for Deommodore Lenoir. But London was a guy that just that Monday against the Buffalo Bills was pivotal for that win up against Josh Allen and the rest of the Bills team. So to see Deommodore kind of shut them down and really go about his way trying to just ruin any type of confidence that they had, I see Deommodore going on the road and trying to do the same thing with a lowly Texas team who has a losing record at this point in the season. And so it's really fun to watch him do his thing. But goodness gracious, he flies around. He's everywhere. You look up and number 2 is there. And you just wonder, like, how is he able to, like, do what he does? And he won't answer. He'll give you a joke. He'll crack a joke as to why it is that he does it. But that's why he calls himself the hyena, because he's quick and he's a menace. And he likes that. And quite frankly, I love that for him. He's so much fun to watch and cover that be a menace to society. We love watching it. And quite frankly, the Niners defense needs it because they feed off that energy. And you can tell that him now assuming a leadership role, the younger guys feed off of that with Deommodore. and Chase. And Jair Brown, he's more like a gentle giant, not so verbal, but still has a presence that they all just kind of mesh well together, the three of them. Now, Jair is a safety, but there's just this aura that they have that is really contagious, and it really gets the defense fired up. And it's something that's really important for the Niners right now because their biggest boost giver in Fred Warner is not out there. I mean, he's not even on the sidelines right now. So, they need that type of that guy that's going to put a battery in their back to go out there and destroy somebody, destroy an offense.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're going to switch over a little bit from defense to, of course, offense. Of course, you can't talk 49ers without talking a little offense. And the first person that a lot of people think of when it comes to this offense is Christian McCaffrey. Yes, CMC. There was a lot of talk about him this offseason. Last year was a kind of a rough season. He wasn't healthy. He got injured eventually, was out for the year, and people wondered what was going to happen going into the 2025 season. Well, he not only said he was healthy, he's showing that he was healthy, and he surely is the stuff of nightmares for the Atlanta Falcons with what he did to them. So,
for sure, George Kittle as well.
Did you expect him to come out like this after a point?
After a season like he had this past season?
Yeah, did you expect this from him after last season? Or something like this?
Yeah.
Or how did you kind of expect him to come out?
Quite frankly, I did. They always call CMC a psycho. Like they always say you have to save Christian McCaffrey from himself. And quite frankly, he does kind of give robotic vibes. Like, I just need to play football. I want to play football and I need to run the ball. I need to play. And I just want to play football. So yeah, I saw him coming into this season and having a season like we're starting to see, because it's been a slow start in a way, not necessarily for Christian McCaffrey for the run game. Christian McCaffrey has gotten a lot of his yardage as a receiver. And obviously he's not a receiver, but they've been hurt on the receiving end as well, as far as the wide receivers goes for the Niners. So when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, I did kind of see him doing this because he was so hungry last season to get back out there that you don't really want to come back from Achilles tendonitis too quickly. But you could see that he was itching to get back out there, and then he finally is able to get out there, probably not even 100% with the Achilles tendonitis, but then injures himself in the Buffalo Bills snow game. So when you think about that, he was hungry, itching to get back out there. So I could see him coming in playing the way he's playing. However, George Kittle, I do think, especially after week 7, is a pivotal piece for Christian McCaffrey to be able to do Christian McCaffrey-like things, because we've seen Christian McCaffrey try to run the ball through 6 weeks, and he wasn't getting much yardage, if any at all. Like I said, he was getting it as a wide receiver through the passing game. And George Kittle comes back, and then boom, he has his first game over 100 yards rushing since 2023. And it's all kind of a work in progress, but we're seeing CMC finally kind of be able to breathe and say, okay, I can do my thing now, because we have pieces that are necessary in order to open up gaps in the run game for me to be explosive, for me to have these explosive, and then for me to eventually find the end zone. So yeah, I did. I definitely saw Christian McCaffrey coming in, because just watching him last season, you could tell he was miserable having to watch from the sidelines. So to see him out there, yeah, he'd probably went through a wall if he had to, because he is excited to be able to play football. And quite frankly, on top of that, he has been the guy this year that has been a mainstay and stayed healthy among the stars, because all of their stars have taken a hit. Whether Trent Williams has been relatively healthy, but Ricky Pearsall hurt, Brock Purdy hurt, George Kittle hurt, Diamador has been fine until just now recently with the quad injury. Nick Bosa hurt. I mean, literally, Fred Warner out hurt. Literally, he is the only guy as a veteran, as a star in that locker room, that has remained healthy throughout the season. And that's really big for the Niners, because they need that.
Definitely. Now, of course, you mentioned it earlier. D'Amico Ryan used to be a defensive coordinator for the 49ers before he got the head coaching job with the Houston Texans. So I'm kind of expecting Kyle Shanahan to have a few wrinkles for him since they know each other so well. I mean, you think I think Kyle's going to have a few things for him that he probably either hasn't seen or hasn't seen in a while. Don't you think he's due for some of those against
Oh, I wouldn't be
D'Amico?
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. It's Kyle Shanahan. He's an offensive genius. Richard Sherman just saying this past weekend that he is right next to Andy Reid as far as the genius that they have in offense. So I'd be shocked if Shanahan didn't have something to pull out of his sleeve after D'Amico Ryan spent a few seasons under him, and they were close, or seemingly they were close on the coaching staff. So I'm sure D'Amico knows Shanahan well. He knows Shanahan's system. And Kyle Shanahan is not trying to go in there and lose a game up against a guy that's very strategic with a very strong defense. So I'm sure he has some looks that maybe have been altered or modified that he has not yet seen. So yeah, but D'Amico will be ready as well. So it'll kind of be a battle between the young grasshopper and the teacher.
Yeah, definitely. Now, of course, D'Amico Ryan, they got Will Anderson on one side, Will Anderson Jr. on one side. They've got Daniil Hunter on the other side. They've got Derek Stingley Jr., quite possibly one of the top corners. Well, he is one of the top corners in the NFL. And they definitely have a plethora of safeties, and the slot guy, Jalen Petrie, who is pretty well respected around the NFL. With this offense, of course, with Mac Jones kind of dinking and dunking and not throwing, a lot of deep passes. Do you expect them to kind of, have potentially some problems against this Houston Texans defense? I mean, a Texans defense that forced 4 turnovers versus Seattle. Yeah. They didn't win the game, but they forced 4 turnovers against Seattle.
Yeah, not only did they not win the game, they were getting blown out and they were still making plays on the defense. That's the thing. So, yeah, I do think that, matter of fact, I asked Kyle Shanahan today, I said, what is your biggest challenge going into this matchup against the D'Amico Ryan's defense? And he basically said that they are very physical, very strategic, very sound, and they work well together. And he thought that would be the biggest challenge. Also speaking to the fact that the defensive line is strong and the offensive line for the Niners has struggled. Not necessarily because they're not experienced, but they are young. They've lost Ben Bartch to injury. They've lost Colton McKivitz to injury. Those are the veterans. So now you got guys like Connor Cope. They lost Jake Brindle to injury here recently in week 7. So now you got guys like Connor Colby, a rookie, and you got guys like Matt Hennessy at center. And these are just guys. You still have Trent Williams. Trent Williams played lights out in week 7. So you do have guys on the offensive line, but I mean, we would be remiss to say that the challenge that they have this upcoming week in week 8 would not be in the trenches. I think that's the biggest battle they have to fight between themselves and Houston is how well they can protect Mac, because Mac is beat up. And Adrian Martinez has never played an NFL snap. And although Brock Purdy has been out there, and I'm sure we'll talk about him in just a little bit, he's been out there at practice the last 2 weeks. And even today, I noticed his mobility looked a lot better. I doubt he plays this week because of the turf toe injury and the turf surface in Houston and him not being 100%, having rushed himself back in week 4. So you want to keep guys off of Mac Jones because you don't know how many more his Mac Jones is tough. He has earned my respect as far as being able to remain resilient, take a hit, get back up and keep pushing, whether he's limping or clobbering. He's making his way back out there on the field every snap. And so, in my opinion, the biggest challenge would be the offensive line trying to keep the defensive line off of Mac Jones. But it helps that Christian McCaffrey has kind of found himself and George Kittle has returned back onto the field. And I surmise that George Kittle will be targeted a lot more in this game than he was in week 7, which will open up some things. And if Kendrick Bourne is able to also have a good game, Jawan Jennings has been playing pretty decently. I think they will be okay. However, Mac's oblique injury is hurting him a bit to throw still. And he won't say that he's 100%. He does say that he's getting better, but that's something that will be a challenge for them. And in order to be able to get the throw off, they got to keep him off of him. And so that is going to be, in my opinion, the biggest challenge. How well can the offensive line contain the defensive line and keep Mac out of trouble?
Yeah, Mac is definitely, I will say, I have called him McCorkle for a long time and not called him Mac. Because I was like, yeah, he's got to earn being called Mac again after, you know,
to me, he is Mac. I mean, Mac with the K. Like the Mac man. He has earned my respect. Okay. He is tough.
He's earned it now, feel me.
Yeah. He's tough. And I didn't think that. When he first got there, I'm like, you know, you got the dad bod going and you're giggling all the time. And everybody says you're the funny man. But you see him out there and you see what he's fighting through. And you see that he's really disguising it pretty well. You got to give him his props.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I guess I can start calling him Mac now because, you know, I've been calling him McCorkle for ever since his second year in the NFL. I've been calling him McCorkle, and I'm like, yeah, he's got to earn Mac back. So I
off of the field, McCorkle wholeheartedly, yes.
Oh my goodness. See, I do have to ask you, you mentioned Brock Purdy. Yeah, the health there of Brock Purdy. And some people were actually mentioning that, dare I say, a quarterback controversy, which I don't think there is one. But how is Brock Purdy doing in terms of kind of progressing and potentially, you know, making his way back to the field? You say he's kind of moving around a little bit more out there?
Yeah, he is. Today he looked pretty good out there on the practice field, moving around a lot more on his toe. That said, when it comes to Brock Purdy, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy at all. Mac Jones, very talented as a quarterback. But as far as the Shanahan offense goes, and as far as the pieces they have on this team, I definitely think that Brock Purdy is the stronger quarterback as far as running this Shanahan system a little bit more seamlessly. One, because he's been in it for a minute. But then two, because he kind of has a familiarity with these guys that just works well for him. And the biggest reason, Mac Jones, not that mobile. Brock Purdy can get you a play or two with his legs, or he can at least get you a first down with his legs here and there. Mac Jones, he won't do that too much. And so I do think that Brock Purdy, this is still Brock Purdy's team. I mean, they just paid him $53 million a year. That's not going anywhere. And so they're going to make sure as best as possible that Brock Purdy will remain the guy on this team. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy, but I do think the Niners recognize we're in a pretty good situation. We got 2 starting quarterbacks. And if we don't have to rush our $53 million man back on an injury that's really hard to return from, let's rest him. Let's not make it worse. We tried that. We saw it didn't work. Let's not do that again. Let's give him time to really recover so that years and seasons down the road, he's still that guy for us. Instead of us paying him 5 years, $53 million, and he can't do anything for us. And now we're in the draft trying to get another quarterback and try to rebuild and start all over again. So I think that's really much more of what we see here, is that the fact that they understand that Mac Jones can hold it. He's been holding. He has more wins on the season than Brock Purdy has for reasons we just explained. And he's really been able to find some synergy with Kendrick Bourne. Granted, they played together in New England. That's worked well for him. And now that the run game is also working well, that just helps Mac Jones, because for Shanahan's offense, you need the run game to open up the pass game, because you got to get people to respect the fact that there are weapons out there that you have to cover, so that opens up other guys where you might think they're blocking, but then they're breaking. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know. And so you have to respect the fact that Kyle Shanahan's offense needs a run game to have a passing game, which in turn helps that Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle are out there with Mac Jones, because he can rip it. He just has to have more time. He's not going to scramble too much, which is why he takes the hits that he takes, which is not great. So the long story short, Brock Purdy does look better. No quarterback controversy. It is still Brock Purdy's team, but I think they're playing the long game.
Got you. Now, of course, I do want to get a few closing thoughts on, of course, Houston versus the 49ers. And to me, this Houston team well against teams are, not considered very good, like the Titans and the Ravens. They've outscored those two teams 70-10 in their 2 wins.
Mm-hmm.
But in those other games, offensively, they have struggled a lot. And defensively, they've been in those games, but their defense has been on the field so long that eventually they give up points to the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely tired. So, what do you kind of expect from this game, just from the 49ers versus this Houston team that kind of, can't get it all the way together?
Quite frankly, I've gone into a few games this season wondering whether or not the Niners were going to come out victorious, and they ended up doing so, like the LA Rams game, the Seattle Seahawks game. I actually thought they would get the Jacksonville Jaguars game very similarly to those games I just mentioned before, Jacksonville. I think the Niners can get this game. I think that's the way it will end up going, only because the Houston Texans are 2-5 right now. CJ Stroud is struggling. And I think his confidence is not there. I think he's struggling to find his confidence right now. And the team can feel that. And I think they're all together struggling to find their identity as an offense, while the defense has an identity. Like you said, you run them in the ground, and at some point they're going to let some things go. And some guys are going to get past the secondary. Some guys are going to get through for a first down. And more first downs just mean more time out there on the field, which means more hard work. And now you're tired. And if the offense goes with the quick 3 and out because they can't get anything working, you back out there on the field, you run down. And I think that the Niners do have enough star power and enough firepower going into this game, especially enough momentum. I don't know if you ever watched the movie You Got Served, but at the end where they were saying we do it for Little Saint, you definitely get the vibe that they doing it for Fred Warner and they doing it for Nick Bosa. So going up against a team like a 2-5 Houston team, I think they take their confidence down there, and I think they have a pretty dominant game. I think they perform well, especially if Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle have the same synergy that they've had the last week. And now, that being said, we all know those games where it's like a shoe-in, it should be a win. It should be an easy one. And then you go there, you underestimate a team, you let them get off, you let them get some momentum, and before you know it, you're looking up and you're lost. I do also think that that's a possibility because this is a very strong defense, and this is an offense that's still struggling when it comes to the Niners to find their identity because they have so much rotation as far as personnel. I mean, you got MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling in there. Then you got Kendrick Bourne. Then MVS is on IR. And then you got Ricky Pearsall. And then he's out because he's injured. And then you got George Kittle coming back. But you got so many guys that's in and out. It's hard to find some cohesive chemistry, I should say. And it seems like the only cohesive chemistry in the passing game truly is Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne. But then also Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey. And so passing game and run game for Christian McCaffrey, I'm saying. So I do think that the Niners should come out victorious in this one, even though it's on the road. They played well on the road, only dropping to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. And Baker Mayfield played out of his mind in that game. And so I think they get this one against Houston. As long as they don't go down there and dilly-dally and let it slip, I think they'll be fine, which doesn't really happen too much in the NFL, but it can happen. So if they give up a few too many penalties too early, if Mac throws the ball away a little too much, if guys are not getting to their spots when they should be, dropping passes, we've seen that, this could be a long night. But if they go down there and play like they've been playing the last couple of weeks, they should be fine.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for giving everyone a glimpse into the 49ers and glimpse into what all is going on over there on the West Coast, Bay Area, with the 5-2 San Francisco 49ers as they head to Houston to take on the Houston Texans. Now, I will tell you, I did get to go visit the Houston Texans Stadium, and when they were playing against the Tennessee Titans, that spread they have at the game, amazing.
Really?
Amazing.
Like the media meals?
If you ever get a chance to go to the Houston Texans game, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. I learned because I've covered the NBA for most of my career. But when I switched over to the NFL, I noticed the meals in the NFL are just superb. They're just much. You get ready to cook. What is it? Ready to order? What is it? Cook to order? Whatever it's called. Cook to order meals or order to cook. I don't know what it's called, but you know what I'm saying. When you can actually in real time order the food and they cook it in front of you, and the Niners have that. I mean, I have always been, thoroughly impressed by the spread that the Niners
they
have.
doing it up out there then.
Yes, and then you go to not LA. I've not been to LA. But then you go to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and they got calamari and different expensive little cheesecake squares, and I mean the layout was crazy. I mean, I ate crab cakes, and I ate so good in Las Vegas. It's probably the highlight of my trip, quite frankly. But yeah, the NFL does not. They take shortcuts in other areas, but they do not take shortcuts when it comes to the food. And I thoroughly appreciate that, because sometimes you go to certain teams and it can be like a lunch meal, like at school. In our business, it just is that way, whether you cover college or high school or professional. But the NFL, they are not lacking in that respect. So I agree. I wish I could taste the Houston spread. I won't be there. I'll be watching from here in the Bay. But if I get down there, I'll be sure to pay them a visit. Because the one thing about me, I love to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was awesome. Yeah. But we'll talk about that more, I guess, off air. But I want to thank you again for coming on the show. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and any other things that you're working on currently?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram is my main thing. Instagram is eWilsonTV. Same handle for Twitter. LinkedIn is Erin Wilson. You should be able to find me. And then of course, tune in to crom4.com. You can always watch us live in our coverage, or catch me on the sideline in a Niners game.
All right. Now I will say, folks, if you are looking for Erin on the sideline, she is the black woman on the sideline that has the nice suit on. Yes, with the tie as well, folks. Yes, it is. She be dressed to the nines on the sideline, y'all.
Thank you. I think I got it. My friend told me I need to retire the ties, so I think I'm gonna let them rest for the rest of this season. But they'll be back.
Got you. Yeah, I've heard some of those things about some of the things I wear as well. But hey, of course, I am the host of the show. My name is Mike Patton. Of course, you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on there on Blue Sky as well. Same thing. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. And of course, touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And we are also on the YouTube universe as well at the Mike Patton Network. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. Wow, episode 364. Wow, we out here. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. That's Erin Wilson. We're out. Peace.